Hey guys, what's going on? This is Hurley, your host of the podcast, All That Glitters. Um, both boys are in bed. It's been an eventful Memorial Day weekend. Wife has a little bit of work, so I could sneak away, film a little bit for you guys. This is another pilot episode. I wanted to test some video, how it's all going to work out. I can't figure out where to put this mic that picks up really good without being too muffled. So we will get that. I'm going to hold it today. Hopefully soon when we get in the studio, the mics will be a lot better. But for now, I'm very grateful just to be able to talk to you guys. So let's dive into some VGK stuff tonight. The intro episode was a little bit about why we're doing this, what we're doing this. And yeah, so we're inching closer to free agency, and there's big topics out there in the Twitter sphere, or all the other the hockey writers, not just VGK, but your Elliot Friedmans, your Pierre LeBrun, there's one name on everybody's list right now, right at the top, and that's where will Mitch Marner go? Who will win the Mitch Marner sweepstakes? Pierre LeBrun was on TSN 1050. And he was chatting about, Detroit is in on Marner, and Anaheim's in on Marner, and LA's in on Marner, and everybody, right? I mean, who doesn't want a 90 to 100 point goal score? I mean, not goal score, but points producer almost year in, year out. Plays such a responsible two-way game. He's a Selke nominated winger, which isn't really anything that happens. Mark Stone got a couple of votes a few years ago, but as far as it goes with, that's a centerman's trophy. So just to be nominated is kind of an honor as a winger. Younger guy, cap hit is big, but he's a generational player. He's one of those players that you can build a team around, kind of like how we did with Jack Eichel. Now, those teams are in on Marner. Funny, though, is that there's two teams that Marner's interested in. The Florida Panthers and the Vegas Golden Knights. And this is all hearsay. And if you speak to Toronto fans, Mitch Marner's agent isn't the most, how do I want to say it? He isn't the most fun negotiator to deal with. So we don't know if it's all smoke and mirrors or what to try to drive his price up. We don't know. But we do know that he plays right wing. He scores points. And Vegas needs points. When we let Marchessault walk in free agency last year, the big thing was who's gonna produce points, who's gonna get these goals, where are they gonna come from? And by committee, we did it this year. I don't know if we could continuously do it again next year. Was Howden's year, was that the beginning of something that we're gonna see more and more? Is he a 25 goal scorer yearly? We don't know. Is he taking more steps to his game? Ivan Barbashev, before he got injured in that Minnesota game, he was on track for 30 plus goals. Is Dorofeyev's production this year going to continue to rise without letting some of his defensive side not be able to grow? I mean, he obviously, we saw what he could do in the power play and in the offense, but defensively there is a lot to be had there still. Is Hertl going to continue to be a 30 goal scorer? Obviously the power play this year really helped both Doro and Hertl. And, we had a lot of these 10, Kolasar had a career year. I think he had 12 goals. We can't rely on these guys having career years year in, year out. And unfortunately, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he goes and has more and more of a goal production year, but Jack Eichel is a playmaker. He likes to hold on to the pucks. He likes to defer. He's even talked about it. So where are these goals coming from? Now, that being said, Marner, career-wise, in red, he's not this gigantic goal scorer either. What he is a very responsible two-way forward. Creates his offense from defense, and he does like to make some plays too. I mean, if you have Austin Matthews on your side, on your line, and you're going to defer to him almost 99% of the time. Now, that's the knock on Marner, is he doesn't score goals, or he's not a big-time player. Everybody in Toronto on that team is not a big-time player. Every time I think Matthews has had a couple of games in the postseason stand out. A Columbus series that I believe was in the bubble, but it doesn't matter. They haven't taken that step. Tavares, Marner, Matthews, Nylander is going to be your biggest playoff producer, but even though those numbers are their biggest, that's not a big playoff production. So why would we go that route? Well, Austin Matthews was hurt quite a bit in the beginning of the year. He went to Germany a couple of times to have something rehabbed. I believe it was upper body, so it could be wrist or shoulder. And obviously, his lack of goal scoring this year would kind of show that maybe something was bothering him where he would be able to shoot the puck. When he was gone, Marner looked unbelievable. Marner looked like a Hart Trophy candidate in that time. I think he missed 10 to 20 games, and in that time frame, Marner was over a point production player. So he can step up. Is it a matter of he didn't have to be the guy, so he wasn't, but he can be the guy? Is it a matter of too much shining bright lights in Toronto? You know, there was a player not too long ago that people said didn't have much heart, couldn't play in the big game, was an unknown because he had never made the playoffs, overpaid, overhyped. That was Jack Eichel. The only reason he didn't win the Conn Smythe the year we won the Cup is because Jonathan Marchessault put up 22 goals in that playoff run. So, listen, there is a lot of excitement around this player, and can Vegas pull it off? If any team can do it, pressed against the cap, Vegas can. That's going to be at the expense of a couple of people. I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze, because at that rate, you're basically going to have to handshake deal Jack Eichel and say, hey, listen, we're not going to get this extension done this year. We're going to bring on Marner. And then at the end of next season, when you are due, let's go. But now you run a risk. If Vegas, for some reason, takes a step back, doesn't make it, if Jack Eichel doesn't feel like they're going to be in that race or in that hunt, and he would like to move on elsewhere, that's where you run the risk. If we don't get pen to paper soon, that's when, minds start racing and palms start getting itchy, and let's see how much we could squeeze, and maybe the waiting and the time outprices Vegas for Eichel. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Eichel has actually made it known, even in that locker cleanout day, that he loves Vegas, he loves the community, and he's sure that talks will go fine. That's kind of the how I felt about it all afterwards. There's a couple other free agents out there who play wing that I wouldn't mind Vegas poking around. Brock Boeser, the Vancouver Canucks, he has expressed his disinterest with re-signing with the team. He is much more of an offensive player than he is defense, but that's not to say that's all gas, no brakes on the offense. He does have some defensive responsibility. He's just not going to jump out at you as a Selke candidate. He, to me, is going to be more of like a sturdier player. He has an injury past, so can he stay healthy? Sturdy meaning like body type wise. He's not Nick Hague huge, but he's not one of his former teammates, Connor Garland small, or one of our former guys, Jonathan Marchessault. So he's not a little guy, but he's not a huge guy either. And then you have Nikolaj Ehlers from Winnipeg. He's going to be a lot more offensive than defense. He doesn't play the PK, but he's a special talent as well. So they're going to be that second tier as far as price range goes. I think Boeser was making 6.5. Ehlers was making somewhere in that 7 to 8 ballpark. One thing that Vegas has that not many people do, the Floridas of the world do, and they're going to have a lot of cap space too. So they're going to be in on a lot of these players. But one thing that Vegas has is no state tax. Your dollar is going to go further. You're not going to only see half your check. And these players formerly from Canada, the Ehlers playing in Winnipeg, and the Boesers playing from Vancouver, and the Marners playing from Toronto, especially that Vancouver tax bracket and that Toronto tax bracket, even if they sign for the same price, no one's signing Mitch Marner for $10 million. No one's signing Boeser for 6.5. They're going to get raises. But if they did, that's still a raise, essentially. Not on paper, but they're making more because of that no state tax. Is that an advantage? Yeah, absolutely. Don't hate the player at that point, hate the game. You know what I mean? We don't make those rules. Talk to your local state senator. I don't know. But what I think Vegas needs to do, obviously everyone has their own opinion. I think we need to re-sign Smith to the exact same term until Carlson's contract runs out. Those two run so well together. It was so evident as soon as he came on. Obviously, Smith hasn't played that well since we had let him go and let him walk after the cup, or traded him rather. And Carlson seemed to come back to life too a little bit. Not to say that he was bad for any stretch of the season, but he didn't have consistent line mates. And that guy to his right or left, because Smith does play both wings, I think just having that guy around him, they know where they're going to be. They've played for so well for so long together that it just made sense. So I would like to see, hopefully Smith wants to stay here and will take a team-friendly deal. I think that's one of these players that might finally say, hey, I want to stay in Vegas. My wife loves it here. My family loves it here. I love it here. It's revitalized my career not once, but twice now. I think he likes being here, so I think he might take a discount. I think you can get him done for 2 times 2.5. Maybe throw some bonus incentives in there if he plays a certain amount of games, if we go certain, if he hits a certain amount of points, or if we go a certain amount into the playoffs, or he plays that many, 50% of the playoff games or something like that. I think that that's something that you might try to get some bonus laden contract incentives and see if he goes for there. And that keeps the, that $9 million of wiggle room we're playing with, keeps a little bit more of it. I think if you're going to re-sign any of the other forwards, to me, Victor Olofsson was great, but we don't need 2 of them. And Pavel Dorofeyev is younger and his game is still growing, where Victor's isn't growing as much. That's not to say he can't learn more and play more of a Bruce Cassidy style game, but I just think that he's been a professional for a lot longer, so he's kind of gonna have his tendencies and style of play, whereas Olofsson is almost like the old dog, where Pavel Dorofeyev is a little bit more malleable still, and he can still learn, and maybe he's done too. I mean, maybe that's the peak of his game as well. So we'll see. He does play very well on the side of Hertl, and obviously finally having a healthy Hertl locked up in that second center position was awesome. I think we can I think you can probably re-sign Tanner Pearson, yeah, for that fourth line, but also Brandon Saad. I think you could sign Pearson for $1.5 million. He was on a PTO this year, and he proved really well. He slotted in very well for what I thought we were going to be missing, a William Carrier on that bottom line. Pearson played very well. He's a good north to south player. He wins puck battles, and he just does dirty work well. And he can move up and down the lineup a lot like William Carrier when he was there. You know, and he wasn't as injury prone as Carrier. So, do we miss some of that grit and snarl that Carrier used to bring? Yeah. And can Tanner Pearson bring that? Maybe next year, he feels a little bit more comfortable and he can start bringing some of that other game. Look at Zach Whitecloud this year. He definitely brought a little bit more grit and meanness to his game. So it's not like these guys can't evolve. And then Brandon Saad played really well when he came over. He came over we got him on waivers. St. Louis terminated his contract, so because they thought, they would like to give him a better opportunity to play somewhere else. He wasn't being utilized to what he or the team thought was his potential, and they weren't going to go that direction anymore. So, I don't know what a Brandon Saad contract looks like. I think it's probably something similar to Smith. If we're going to make a splash in free agency, we're going to have to let somebody go. We don't have to re-sign Brandon Saad. We don't have to re-sign Tanner Pearson, but someone's going to have to slot into those positions. And I don't know if you were aware, but the Henderson Silver Knights stunk this year. They were so bad. So they were so bad that our worst player, forward-wise, and I don't know if I want to be that hard on him. He was a reclamation project. But Alexander Holtz gets sent down to Henderson, and he has a 4-goal game almost immediately. So if we saw Alexander Holtz play, and we had an opinion on that play, and he goes down and not only is their best player immediately, and then they start to play better a little bit, not much. They did turn it around a little bit at the end of the season. I don't know if we want those players representing anything in the Golden Knights unless there's a major injury. Cole Schwindt played very fine. He got hurt and then he never quite made it back. And, he can play that center role. If we do move on from anybody with value, you're looking at like a Nick Waugh. You're looking at a Ivan Barbashev. And I think Ivan Barbashev's interesting because in St. Louis, he was used as a bottom six role. And here in Vegas, he's been mainly a top six, almost exclusively on Eichel's side. And in his physicality and his style of play is a lot more north-south and simple. The physicality he brings creates a little more space for Eichel to be that playmaker. But we saw it a little bit in the beginning, and then it tapered off. So I don't know if we saw what Ivan Barbashev could be or if that was the peak. And if that was the peak at $5 million, I think we can make a move here to bring in somebody who we know that their peak is a higher ceiling than that, right? You will miss the physicality aspect if we do move on, which another free agent that I'd like to see, he's a younger guy. He was moved in this weird blockbuster trade from Nashville to Tampa 2 years ago as Tanner Jeannot. Played for the Kings last year. If you're unfamiliar, he'll finish checks. He's a little bit of he's a prick to play against. And that's what I think Vegas is missing from that cup run year. Marchessault puts the puck in the back of the net, but what he does better than that, in my opinion, is after every puck gets held, after every scrum, he is in your face, and he's not this overbearing physical guy. It's not like he's fighting, but he is such an ass. He's going to get in your face. He's trying to get on your nerves. He wants you to take a roughing penalty. He wants you to do something stupid later. He goats you into that. Barbashev will get under your skin. He will finish your checks, whether they're up 6-1 or they're down 6-1. And you need a little bit of that snarl and grit. William Carrier was the same thing. So if we bring on one of this middle to bottom six players, and he does have a 20-goal season too, so it's not like he's a scrub. We can take that and kind of sick him, boy. Get that junkyard dog and get him out there to rile some things up and maybe make another team make a mistake and take a crucial penalty. When you're in the playoffs, if you don't have a prick, it's really tough to win. Florida has now, after they lost, they have rode the line of having those players that get under your skin, but without doing it over the top. And I think that there's actually a really funny clip of Mark Stone in the locker room, and he's like, they're wasting so much energy chirping. Well, now they've figured it out. They've either conserved some of that energy by chirping less, or it's all by committee. Every single player gets under your skin. Every single player is physical. Every single player, when the refs aren't looking, does something a little dirty. Not a bunch. Not a Pietrangelo tomahawk to Leon Draisaitl. That was a lot of it dirty. But they're going to make sure that you remember that you played the Florida Panthers. And I think that if we have a few of those guys, your Jack Eichels, your Mark Stones, your Tomas Hertls, like those guys aren't going to do that. That's not that's not the DNA of their game. And when you can actually let them go and play, and you have someone, Howden finishes his checks. He has a pretty simple game. Pearson can. Barbashev can. But these people, Howden's, Barbashev's, and Pearson's can be interchanged year after year. I love our team. I had thought that this team could make a big, deep cup run. They didn't. Maybe you tweak, you get a lucky bounce here or there, but Edmonton ran the show. We took 2 of those games to overtime, but they cleaned us up pretty tidy, pretty quick. I think that's when we're looking at building a team for next year that wants to make a deep run. I think we need to bring a little bit more physicality. I think we need to have a little more bite up and down the lineup. And I think that we need to have players not afraid to play a little bit of that. Take a hit to make a play. Get in front of a puck. We used to, and I'm not speaking about it being so far removed, but, Alex Smith, Braden McNabb, like they were like 2 of the top 5 in the league of eating pucks. They're blocking shots. The reason Alex Smith has so many own goals and pucks go off of him, Braden McNabb, is because they're getting in front of him. And when you're expecting your superstars to do that, Jack Eichel will eat a puck for you. But do we want him taking one off the wrist and now he's injured and out and can't shoot the puck? Or do we want him taking one off the boot and he can't skate? Like, that's how this guy makes plays. That's how we're putting points up on the board. So we need to get a few Neanderthals back there. I'm not talking can't play hockey. I would never say it to his face, but I'm not talking about Ryan Reeves, who shouldn't even, he would go out there without a stick if he could. What is his value with the stick in his hand? It's pretty low. We need to get some people that aren't afraid to play hockey and to play an older style school of hockey. If I could take Dom Ducharme and make him just like our special teams coach and bring in John Tortorella to be our assistant coach, First off, every player would hate going to the rink, but I do love something about that style of play. It ain't sexy, but man, it is effective. Bruce Cassidy does demand a lot defensively, and I think he is the top 3, top 4 coaches in the league. So I'm not knocking, and I'm not calling for jobs. I just like John Tortorella. I think he's, first off, he is a media gem, but what he demands of his players is just, man, it's otherworldly. You know, I think if we can get a couple more gritty players, and I think if we can, maybe not the Marner contract superstar, but if we can get a sniper, a true sniper next to Jack, man, I think this team could go places. And I could be completely wrong. We'll find out. I think that it's very interesting. What does that look like? We pick up Marner. We're most likely moving off from Barbashev almost immediately, so we'll have to find someone for them. It's not a trade situation because he's a free agent, but Toronto could use an Ivan Barbashev. It just is what it is. They have almost no gritty player. Matthew Nyes can get in front of a puck, but I mean, he's not really going to be that physical presence. He's a huge dude, though. I think if you're going to bring on, an Ehlers or a Boeser, you might not have to move on from Barbashev, but you're probably not going to have enough money to re-sign Nick Waugh or Nick Hague, who is due as an RFA. He might get offer sheeted, which I don't know how many people are going to be offer sheeting Nick Hague. That's not a knock on Hague, but we can, Korzak can be an NHL regular, and if we need to move from a defenseman, it's most likely him. I know just because it's a little funny to me. I know it's not happening. I know he has a full move clause, but the albatross of a contract that is Alex Pietrangelo is going to age like milk in June. We're starting to see flashes of it now. He's getting older. He's losing a step. He's eating a ton of minutes. So I'm not saying this guy's worthless. He's a great defenseman. He's an elite defenseman. He just made Team Canada for the 4 Nations. He's going to make Team Canada for the Olympics. But at 8x8, I think if there's any way, I made a buddy of mine. We'll name him Juan Merrill. I made a buddy of mine, I think, hate me for about 72 hours. But I'm going to bring it up just because. Craig Berube coaches for the Toronto Maple Leafs now. Alex Pietrangelo won a cup with the St. Louis Blues when Craig Berube was the coach. Toronto lacks something. Alex Pietrangelo is a bit of a psycho when his wires get crossed, a la Tomahawk, Leon Draisaitl. But he's a fantastic leader, and he's very vocal, and he gets the boys back to the importance. If we were to have to trade a Nick Waugh packaged with Alex Pietrangelo and a second-round pick, never going to happen, our second-round 2025, for Brandon Carlo, whereas we get a defenseman back, someone who's responsible but a much lower cap hit. Man, what that does for the VGK as far as being able to work some money, holy moly. You let that, and maybe you don't take Brandon Carlo back. Maybe you take a future considerations and it's a complete cap dump. Then now we're really sailing. We would hurt a ton in the back end with that. And that's not to say this is what I want to do, but think about it. Think about the bathtub full of gold coins now that we're swimming in, that we could throw a few shekels at a few of these free agents. Man, that'd be some fun. If the salary cap didn't exist, we'd be spending, we'd be the Yankees. So, you know, moral of the story here and where I'll end it is no one knows what's going to happen here in free agency. I think that there is a world where we sign Marner. I think that there's a world where we go with these second tier options. And that sounds so much worse, but they're incredible players. With the Nikolaj Ehlers and the Brock Boesers, in Vegas is gonna make a splash. We always do. Be very on the lookout here come draft day, which coming up quicker than you think. 3 weeks. When that happens, let's see where we're at, because I think something big's coming down the pipeline. And I think that this second round exit has left a bitter taste in our GM, Kelly McCrimmon's mouth. And I think that with that bitter taste, we're going to go after something big here. So I'll leave you with that. I appreciate you guys listening. And hopefully, when this is all edited, this is something much cooler than the back of my garage. And if not, then, oh well, thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate you. I'll figure out this mic situation. I'll figure it all out. I love you guys. Thank you for your time. The second episode of the pilot series of All That Glitters is Gold. Again, I'm Kalen Hurley. Go Knights.